Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Sue. Sue. That's how much
Good seeing you.
Hey. I don't know. Was this you? Where'd you come from?
It's 7 o'clock, and I want to respect everyone's time, so if we can all take our seats, we'll start the meeting. I have an announcement to make. As we all know, today was declared by President Trump as a national day of mourning, as the nation mourns the loss of President George H.W. Bush. President Trump took official action to allow all federal employees to join their fellow citizens in remembering our 41st President of the United States. So he issued an executive order to excuse all federal employees from duty for Wednesday, December 5th, except those who, in the judgment of the head of the agency, could not be excused for reasons of national security, defense, or other essential businesses. Therefore, our FAA representatives are not going to attend our meeting tonight. We will continue the agenda item that is slated for that discussion. But I would like to have us now just take a moment of silence in honor of our former President George H.W. Bush, in honor of his passing. Thank you very much. I'll ask James to do the roll call, please. Call to order.
City and County of San Francisco Board of Supervisors. City and County of San Francisco Mayor's Office. City and County of San Francisco Airport Commission.
Ivar Satterthwaite.
San Mateo County Board of Supervisors. CCAG Airport Land Use Commission.
I think that's me.
Carol Ford.
Town of Atherton.
Elizabeth Lewis.
City of Belmont.
Julia Mates.
City of Brisbane.
Terry O'Connell.
City of Burlingame. City of Daly City. City of Foster City. City of Half Moon Bay.
Harvey Rarback.
Town of Hillsborough.
Al Worth.
City of Menlo Park. City of Millbrae.
Annie Oliva.
City of Pacifica.
Sue DeGree.
Town of Portola Valley.
Dan Wenkert.
City of Redwood City.
Janet Borgens.
City of San Bruno.
Marty Medina.
City of San Carlos.
Ron Collins.
City of San Mateo. City of South San Francisco. And Town of Woodside. Madam Chair, we do have a quorum.
Great. Thank you all for coming. A couple other items. We do have some, in the holiday spirit, we have some refreshments, cookies, brownies, cupcakes, and a special cake. There's some sparkling cider for everyone if you want to pour yourself a cup and enjoy throughout the meeting or wait until afterwards. So happy holidays. And with that, I'd like to also introduce a special guest who we always enjoy having him with us, as Glenn Morris, who is the Director of Industry Affairs for United Airlines. Thank you very much, Glenn, for being with us tonight. Is there anyone else that we have? Kathleen Wentworth, who is the a senior aviation advisor for Congresswoman Jackie Spears' office. Kathleen, so nice to have you with us tonight. Okay, with that, I will open the public comments, and I do have several speaker cards. We will start with Doreen Gatelli, South San Francisco, and then after her will be Charlie Wambach of San Francisco.
Greetings and happy holidays to all. Okay. The last time I was up here, I mentioned I got no help with the online second chance, the retrofit, not the Scratchers game. And unfortunately, I'm still having some issues. So if it's at all possible, after the meeting, if I could have like maybe 5 minutes, because I have an idea that I'd like to present to you. And that's going to be all for me tonight, because I'm a little under the weather and I don't want to kind of get it so that I'm hacking like crazy up here. But yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Doreen. Charlie, and then we'll have Michael Harris from South San Francisco.
Charlie Wambeck from San Francisco. I told Sue tonight I really regret having met her because she got me started in this thing. Thanks, Sue. I wasn't going to come back to any of these meetings, but, you know, since then we've had a meeting with Jackie Spear. We had one at City Hall yesterday, and there might be a glimmer of hope that we might be able to do something about this airport noise. And you know, I've been living, well, all of us have been living with it. You know, this is not just a personal story, but it just is beyond belief that it's continuing and we can't do anything about it. And that's one reason why I really didn't want to come back to this forum anymore, because it seems like it's just a waste of time. Hopefully it won't be forever, but it's been 3 years for me, and I'm tired of it. And all this baloney about not shifting noise and stuff like that, I don't believe in any of that baloney either, because the noise got shifted in the first place, okay? You know, I spent 48 years with relative peace and quiet in my house, and the last 3 years have been murder. And this Peter Kirsch that was at the attorney that was at Jackie Spear's meeting, you know, he says, oh, pollution is not an issue, you know, because it's so high altitude. Well, maybe if you're talking about 35 or 40,000 feet, it kind of filters out by the time it hits the ground. But when you're under one of these flight paths, which several of us are, okay, because, you know, a lot of us in this room say the planes come right over my house. And it's true, because they come over my house, they come over the houses in Visitation Valley, they come over the houses in Brisbane, they come over the houses, you know, all the way down the peninsula. You know, I saw a plane the other night that went from Redmond, Washington, came across San Francisco, went over to Oakland, down to San Jose, and came back up to land. So, you know, you just kind of wonder where the heck they made these flight paths from. And we need to do something about it. And I think Congress needs to do something about it. And we, you know, and we shouldn't settle for, you know, when you go into negotiations, you shouldn't say, oh, you know, figure out what the compromise ought to be already. You get to compromise positions. We ought to go for broke and say, we don't want these planes flying over our house anymore, and then see where it takes us.
He's experienced. He's experienced. Michael Harris, and then Mark Schul. Thank you.
Good evening, Elizabeth. Good evening, Ivar. At Jackie's meeting, I requested Bert to let us know what was flying, what was obsoleting, and what was upcoming. Bert didn't follow through. I'm rather unhappy about this. I was at your website last night and this morning, and I've been on the SFO, FlyFSO, SFO website recently a lot. The data out there, the statistics available are very much obsolete. I would like this brought up to date. The Korean Airlines and the China Airlines are flying over between midnight and 6 with the 747-400s heavily loaded. If these were to be removed from service, it would help. Some of the smaller airplanes can be refitted, like the 757 with new engines. The 767s are going away for economic reasons. So we would like some good news from both Fly SFO and from the Roundtable as to what's out there and how much our lives are going to get better. I wear these around the house many hours during the day. Both for the airplanes and to use the microwave and the kettle. I have huge amount of hearing loss, tinnitus and hyperacusis. So these are self-defense. Thank you.
We are welcoming Supervisor Dave Pine to our meeting. Thank you for coming, Supervisor Pine. So Mark?
Thank you. I had the opportunity to speak with the acting FAA administrator recently. This followed a presentation by Massport on community involvement. He was frustrated that the field officers report that they're working with communities, and then communities turn around and sue them when changes are made. My response was this. First, the FAA doesn't have a good model for working with communities. I contrasted Massport's model that includes all communities 60 miles from the airport with SFO's county-based model that excludes communities most affected by arrivals, particularly the new procedures. And I use Pirate as a concrete example. The Roundtable requested to the FAA, its community input, that this area be 8,000 feet over Woodside, for even if it means additional track miles. To those of us without representation, this simply was a request to the FAA to move noise south. I didn't bring up other examples, but they exist. Opposite direction takeoffs don't disappear into the bay with no impact. They climb out over Palo Alto and East Palo Alto, as was demonstrated by the recent weather changes. Recommendations to Class B gave the FAA license to make changes that were quite destructive to the Mid-Peninsula. Likewise, speed breaks increased in this area at the same time, and we're now told that AEDT models show that the GBAS overlays will increase noise in this location. These are issues that aren't being addressed because of non-representation. Which brings me to my final point, SFO's community noise study, which was filed with the FAA and for which public comments to the FAA are due by December 26. Two things. Looking at the documentations, there was minimal community input. And the failure to use the AEDT noise model, which the FAA has mandated since March of 2012, 6 years ago, is not right. The noise model used in SFO submissions is 30 years old and is well known not to be accurate. This is wrong. Also, SFO's projections of 50% increase in traffic are disconcerting. Even as a qualified number, that's a lot of air cover for the FAA to make some really bad changes justified by data that SFO is providing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. To get this working here. Okay. So our next speaker is Mary Jo Fremont and then Elizabeth Lopez.
Good evening. I want to comment on a statement made by Beth White at the last SFO Roundtable Technical Working Group on November 8th. Beth White is responsible for public and industry engagement at the FAA. And her statement she made was related to the IFP Gateway, which is a website where the FAA publishes current procedures as well as proposed changes and new procedures. Beth White at the meeting said that the FAA is considering shutting down public access to the IFP Gateway because the public is using the website to comment on proposed changes. According to the FAA, comments should be of technical nature only, which means feasibility, safety, not about impact on people. So if the FAA shuts down the IFP Gateway, the communities will lose a critical mechanism to learn about upcoming FAA changes and new procedures. The IFP Gateway is one of the very few ways, if not the only one, for residents, cities, or independent consultants to learn about FAA procedure changes. So until the FAA put in place a robust community engagement process, the IFP Gateway must remain public. The FAA could easily segregate comments in two categories, one for technical, one for non-technical, Adding another submit button on a website is not rocket science. So please, SFO Roundtable, use your power to prevent the FAA from shutting down the IFP gateway. Thank you.
Elizabeth? And then Ken Miles from Pacifica.
I wanted to talk about, my name's Elizabeth and I'm from Visitation Valley. I just wanted to talk about transparency and data dissemination. There was a question at the San Francisco Town Hall meeting about the altitude over San Francisco, and there was a slide that was presented that stated that in August 2018, the average altitude over San Francisco was about 6,000 feet in altitude. And I live in San Francisco, and I almost never get a plane departing from SFO that comes over my house at 6,000 feet. They're at about like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. And we actually did a study at an Excelsior residence home, and the average altitude was like 445, 5,000. And so I'm just wondering how you can get an average of 6,000 in San Francisco if there's actually no flights going over San Francisco at 6,000 from runway 1L. And I just didn't know who, I don't know if it was Bert, I don't know if you created the chart, the comparison of SFO runways, one left and one right. Is there a way to have some kind of transparency on how the data was calculated? And when can we get that? Can we get that right now? Okay. Is it
centralized in San Francisco, not on the southern end?
Not on the southern end. Okay, because that's where the flights are going.
The ask was San Francisco. We went in a minute.
Okay, so then I think just for transparency, because I think people in San Francisco that are asking this question are in the southern end, so we might need to redo the chart so it's actually more accurate, because it's not.
The ask was for San Francisco, and therefore it's in the middle.
Who made that ask?
I was instructed to use San Francisco.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but who made that ask?
You know, I take your point about that. I don't think I didn't think that I thought we would have average altitudes over the affected area, so that was probably my mistake. So I take your point, and I think that's relevant. And districts 10 and 11, we will prepare the average altitudes over districts 10 and 11.
Okay, is it possible to get that slide retired? That's not there, because
yeah.
it really isn't accurate, and it's pretty deceptive to what's really happening.
Yeah, for the residents of the south end of San Francisco,
Yeah.
I totally agree. Yeah.
So is it possible to get that slide retired?
You know, it depends on what forum we're in, but I think what we need to do is when we talk about, if it's about districts 10 and 11, we need to talk about the altitudes over districts 10 and 11.
Yeah.
It doesn't negate the fact that over the rest of the city, but we need to make that caveat clear that it's an average altitude and be clear about what the altitudes over the affected communities that we're discussing. So
Right, because it is night and day.
Yeah.
The south of San Francisco and the north of San Francisco.
it's a great
totally night
point.
and day.
It's a great point. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay.
Ken Mills?
Hello? Am I on? I'm Ken Miles, live in Pacifica. I live about halfway along the coast in the center of Pacifica, about 200-foot elevation in a steep valley called Valleymar. And I've been there many, many years. In the last few years, it's been pretty rough. I want to talk about low-flying aircraft and in Pacifica, as well as those that are crisscrossing each other. I gave Bert and Sue Degree some information regarding planes that came out that were noted on November 1st, 13th, and 24th. And they were probably the highest was almost 3,000 feet, but overall the average about 2,600 feet above sea level. And I just want to note several things. The top of Sweeney Ridge is 1,300 feet. We're not giving enough space for that. Just like the planes leaving and flying over Brisbane, sometimes they get pretty close to the towers over there. And we also have low-flying aircraft in Pacific, mainly the Coast Guard, and civilian craft flying along the coast. And I think it's an accident waiting to happen. It'll only take time. Enough planes and enough near misses, something's going to happen. Planes crisscrossing each other. Not only planes departing from SFO, but planes from Oakland are crossing each other over the skies. On average, the planes that are leaving SFO are about, I know some are low, but about 6,000 to maybe 10,000 feet, whereas some of the 11,000 feet, whereas some of those coming out of Oakland in the same area and vicinity are around 10,000 feet to around 13,000 feet. So again, something's about ready to happen. I was woke up one morning at about 5 a.m. to a loud noise outside, and I went out to check and see what was going on. I saw two planes, not very, very low, and I didn't have my flight awareness data together in time, but they were probably around about the 2,000, 2,600 feet elevation. They seemed to have crisscrossed each other very close and were about ready to hit. Also, the number of operations have increased. I thought SFO was going to be about 85% operation, but it looks like they're reaching maximum capacity right now with delays going on and aborted flights, etc. And what I believe is what I talked about and what the young lady before me had talked about, these low-flying planes and other things that are going on. We should have metrics that are included in the director's report, catching not only the noise data, but catch these near misses, low-flying planes, and other unsafe operations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ken. Are there any other public speakers? If not, I'm going to close public comment period and go on to the consent agenda, which is, the consent agenda is item number 4, the airport director's reports for September and October 2018. The September 2018 director's report is in the packet. James, do we really have October's report in the packet, or just the September's?
Just September. October wasn't quite ready for publication.
Okay, so we're only approving on the consent calendar the report for September. Is there any questions from the members about this report? Seeing none, may I get a motion to approve item 4, the consent calendar?
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you. And a second? Ann? Okay, so Terry O'Connell and then Ann Olivier. Okay. Okay, thank you. So we'll go on to the regular agenda, which is item number 5. This was our item that we were going to have our guests from the FAA representatives talk to us and respond to the questions that we had submitted, which are in your packets. And it was a general consensus with the team here that we might want to go over those questions if the members would like to, or if there are any questions from the public about the questions. Another thing that has come across us for review is, and every member has a copy of the PowerPoint presentations on your desk, which are were from the FAA, kind of as a almost like a mea culpa for them not showing up, and they wanted to give us a little bit of reading information, right? So one packet is having to do with airport community noise roundtables and the FAA's support. So this is on our website for the public to read. Our members have it. I think that we're pretty familiar with all of the points here, but I think that the FAA was wanting, they've been trying to figure out how to deal with so many roundtable across the country. And so they're trying to formalize their response and interaction so that whoever they send to meet with the roundtable members kind of have a sense of what to expect and what the parameters are. And I think that's what this is. As you know, the San Francisco Airport Roundtable is one of the oldest, the first in the nation, really, and a model of how the roundtables across the country have kind of organized themselves. So this is an interesting read. But the other piece of information that they gave us was our roundtable recommendation about the night and hush SIDS, right? I don't know what that is either. And we've been talking about that. And can you speak to this at all? Or Justin, can you speak to this? They have to... They're talking about how they are trying to modify that in order to remediate some of the noise during the nighttime and with this procedure. Justin? We'll let Justin do it.
Okay.
Hop
sure.
on it, Justin. He's our technical consultant, if you didn't know that already.
Well, I think they're just, I mean, this is the first time I've seen this, so.
Okay.
Yep. But I think they're just outlining a process in which we can address some of the concerns that they had with these. They had three basic concerns with this moving forward. The noise shifting, additional flight miles, and congestion. So I think this basically is just finding a way, a process in which the roundtable would form some sort of working group or subcommittee of some sort to kind of head up this discussion and address some of these concerns.
Is this something that we could do in our technical working group?
I think so. I think this is something. It looks like there should be somebody that is, heading the effort. I think that is what they're wanting. From our end. And they also want to make sure to include Oakland and get their involvement because it does involve hush. And in talking to Oakland too, I briefly talked to Doreen, who's the noise manager over at Oakland, and she was interested in attending the next technical working group meeting, so.
So we should put this onto our agenda for that.
Yep.
Any other members have a comment about it? Yes, Sue.
So, I mean, it looks organized and like they're willing to, we've heard this before, listen, but it's like, why is it coming so that we're just seeing it while we're here? Can they not manage to get something to us at least a week and a half to 2 weeks ahead of time?
Well, as I said, they just sent it this morning.
It's not you.
Right. And I think that they sent it to us kind of as a, I don't know, like a little peace offering because they weren't going to be here.
Oh, that ship sailed.
Ricardo, nice to see you.
How did they
Welcome.
know they weren't going to Sorry. That plane
So, the FAA sent these documents, and so we're kind of reviewing those a little bit. But so we'll, yes, Ivar. On here. Oh,
I have a
yes,
question.
Diane.
So this is just a sample of how something would be addressed? Is that what I'm to understand, or this is?
Yeah. You can
Yes?
hop in.
So the intent here is, with all of the pressure around night hush, our involvement in the FAA Noise Forum, the letters from Jackie Spears' office. There was a letter from that I penned along with United Airlines urging the FAA to proceed with the night hush analysis and move forward because it had stalled out. I was in the FAA Noise Forum meeting last week, and we talked about this and the importance of moving this forward. They have a commitment to move this forward and attend the meetings and support the work. What they've provided here, which is what they were going to come and talk about, was this is how we ask that this gets moved forward. And their ask is that the roundtable takes a formal action to say, The roundtable is all agree this shall be moved forward. It's had the appropriate, review by the roundtable members, and that there is the desire to work together for the FAA to analyze the feasibility of it. They've already done the technical feasibility, and they need to do the next steps of this thing. So they're asking us to affirm that and then assign it to a technical working group with Oakland's involvement. And then work together in the further development of the procedure. This is what they stated is in all of our asks around to look at procedures, this is the process that they're outlining for us now on how this would move forward. So that's what they're trying to achieve.
So may I follow up just for a moment? So it is that they would like to see, I'm just want to be clear about the assignment, as it were, to the roundtable. It is that they would like to see consensus at the roundtable of a change to something, and then they will provide the technical assistance to determine whether it is feasible, because certainly this group is not qualified per se, technically speaking, to know whether something's feasible. So they will provide that expertise, correct? Do I have that right?
They've determined it's technically feasible, now can it be put into operation? And so with other airspace and things like that, and flying characteristics and all those things.
So we've already determined the technical feasibility.
I think that's what they've said. Yeah. I am also just reviewed, spend like 10 minutes with it, and so.
All right, I want to hold you to it.
Your presentation at Supervisor Safai's meeting, you presented some of this in your presentation, right?
Yeah. We have. This is what we've been advocating for. Mm-hmm. We just haven't gotten any response until this on how it would move forward. The letter, our letter, United in our letter is about a week old, and Spears' letter is a week old, and so we hadn't gotten any so we were anticipating a more fully vetted conversation tonight with the FAA. So we're here trying to explain what they were supposed to come and explain. So they will, from what I understand, they will be coming to the technical working group meeting and January 10th and explaining this process, so we're all clear on what it means.
And also presenting the pirate procedure. That Mindy has a presentation on that. Yes, sure.
So then,
okay.
Elizabeth,
So Janet.
What do you need from us today to?
Nothing,
okay.
I think right now. Why don't we put it off to the technical working group meeting? Ann, do you have a suggestion?
Yeah, the one thing that I think, again, and I've only just seen this like everybody, that is clearly missing here is any procedure for their releasing information to this group.
Right.
And how that will happen in a timely fashion. This is all what we're responding to, requesting through all the expertise we have embedded here and all the experience we have locally. The hush, the stick, the pirate, whatever it is. But what's interesting, and I hope we will put it to them in our either technical working group, but also ask them for a similar piece that says what will be the process going forward if the IFP gateway is no longer available to us, for us to understand what is coming, or what you're planning, and to be able to, react to that accordingly. Right. So I think that's the one thing I see. This is all one way, direction, and I'm looking for parity coming back.
Yeah, that was a topic of discussion at the FAA Noise Forum, and the frustration we have around, there's 40,000 IFP gateway entries right now, and they're trying to figure out, our question is, this should be #1 priority, and now they're dealing with 40,000 across the system. What I challenged them was, by the next meeting of the FAA Noise Forum, I want them to tell us how they're going to resolve this 40,000 backlog, because there's no way to get any traction on anything when they're still struggling with what to do with 40,000. And when they go through these, most of these, what's that? Yeah, probably. So that's what they're trying to figure out, is it's overwhelming for them to deal with 40,000 entries in the IFP gateway, and many of them should be just cut off. And I'll just say one of the options, they're looking at what the options are. Do they cull out certain ones that were by certain sponsors? They're struggling with what to do.
Thank you, Ivars.
Yeah. All right. So going back to our agenda item number 5, the questions that we had submitted were refined and expanded upon. They're on pages 21, 22, and 23 of your agenda packet. The FAA says that they are ready to respond to these. They are similar to questions that we had asked previously, but we've made them more pointed and streamlined, I think, and then we included the pirate. So they, again, are going to, I mean, if we have any changes or additions, of course, we could take this opportunity to say, you know, at the roundtable meeting, you didn't show up, and our membership and public had more changes, and so we're going to resubmit for January 10th, and maybe they would respond or not. But so if anyone has any comments on the questions, I'll take them from the members. If I see none, I'm just going to open up the public comment period on this item. Okay? So we have a public comment speaker slip from Elizabeth Lopez and Mary Jo Fremont on this item.
I wanted to find out for the night hush procedure that they're writing about. So they determined it was technically feasible. Did they say during what hours? What hours we're looking at? Does anybody know?
It's the evening hours. 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., I believe, is the study hours.
Okay, so they're not working on anything for the southern part of San Francisco, like during the daytime hours from like 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.?
No, not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, and so would it be possible to add this to like a possible procedure for some of the daytime hours? Okay, so they've said a definite no on that? Okay. As far as congestion, how much is congestion just airlines trying to take off on the hour, like 5 p.m., 5:30, 6 p.m., instead of taking off at 6:17 or, 6:35, instead of an exactly 6 p.m., 6:30, if that makes sense? Like how much congestion, like would there be any ease of congestion being able to take off one left, then one right? Like,
It's what they do. They sequence them out when there's space to do it. It's not about those exact hours. Like they do exactly what you described, is when there's a slot, they take off or they land.
Okay.
Does that answer?
I think so. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Mary Jo?
So I just want to follow up on what Ivar said on the example of the night hush. So it seemed that the FAA says, okay, the roundtable needs to vet, a recommendation, then we can discuss, etc. And you suggested, to include some other communities. But does this mean that the principle is that if the SFO roundtable goes ahead and wants to vet a recommendation to pursue with the FAA, you're going to then involve all communities that could be affected? Because the roundtable is organized by county. And we in Palo Alto have been deeply affected by SFO, but we don't have a voice at that table. So how will that work? So think about the process, which, the flights don't go by counties. They go over people's homes. And so the issue is having one group push a recommendation without having the people who may be affected at the table is a real problem. So that's my remark.
Point well taken, and we will consider that, Mary Jo. Okay. Any more public comments on this item? If not, I'll close public comments, and we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is, and hopefully everyone can come on January 10th when the FAA will be here. We are offering, for our roundtable members, I'm going to look to our roundtable members, a box lunch, because we will do it over lunch, starting at 11:30 and ending at 2. We have the room at 11:30, and so we'll probably begin at 11:45 or something. It worked really well last time, and we hope that we'll have more roundtable member participation.
You said January 10th.
January 10th. January 10th, 11:30, right here in this room. So I'm going to turn over the meeting agenda item number 6, San Francisco updates, to Ivar Sotorio.
Thanks. I spoke about the FAA Noise Forum, and I have to say, it has a lot of attention with the FAA. This last meeting, I was really impressed with the attention it's gotten from the FAA and the level of people that are involved from the FAA. So I'm optimistic through this process, and I'm optimistic, although I haven't gotten into these yet too deeply. There's commitments in here that they're making to the community. So I'm pleased with that kind of progress. They are putting, from my initial read, they are putting the SFO Roundtable in a very central role in this, and I think that's something that I think we just have to think through and see if what we are challenged with we are able to accomplish. And I think Mary Jo's comments are right on. Those are the kind of things we need to wrestle with. But I have to say, the noise forums and the pressure, I think, is having good effect back in DC. Something I talked about the other night at a board meeting, a Board of Supervisors Planning and the Airport Commission that was called, was about what are the opportunities for significant change. And it's through there in the FAA reauthorization. I don't know if is anyone talking about FAA reauthorization?
We wrote a letter, right?
Yes, we
Okay.
wrote a letter, and it's moving on. I mean, 5 years.
Right, 5 years within the FAA reauthorization. There's significant work fronts related to health effects and the noise annoyance study that I've talked about. Yeah. And that's really where the pressure needs to be, is for fundamental change to happen, has to be through the release and dealing with the consequences of what the noise annoyance study. We don't have any insights of what it shows, but I'm imagining it's significant in terms of recharacterizing the impact to the community well beyond a 65 dB CNEL. So to me, that's really should continue to be the focus when you talk about having major impact in what is being experienced currently.
So, Ivar, do you think that it would help if we continue writing letters, focusing our letters on the health and safety and the noise survey that they've done, that they haven't released? Isn't that what you said? They have not published their noise annoyance survey.
I believe under the reauthorization, they're required to deal with it. So I think there is an opportunity, as described the other night, with Leader Pelosi back in as leader of the House, the change in the congressional makeup, and with our Feinstein and Speer, there seems to be a real alignment of stars in terms of our political capital that should be taken full advantage of. So I'll say that, and everyone's gearing up for this.
So my takeaway from that is that with our legislative committee, we need to identify Congress members and that are on the Quiet Skies caucus, and just continue to bombard them with letters from our roundtable, and focus on the health and safety and of noise over our community, which is a critical thing. Any roundtable members have any questions for Ivar?
Good. Yeah, okay, if you wanted to. Just a quick GBAS update, and I think we really need to let this play out. I know there's some data that's disconcerting about that may not improve and may erode or have a negative impact, but we're still fully committed to pursuing GBAS, but only pursuing approaches that don't have a negative impact or don't shift impacts, that kind of thing. So we're fully committed to that. We're really looking for GBAS to have a positive community impact. That is one of the fundamental tenets of the GBAS we're doing. Our second chance and replacement noise insulation program, very popular. We have almost 1,000 applicants between the two total. We've determined about half of those are within what's the 65 CNEL limit, and maybe as you're aware, that is our legally, those are our legal bounds currently for the expending of airport monies, beyond which we're unable to support. So what we've done is we've surveyed about 65 properties, and we'll be having preliminary reports done in December of 18, or yeah, this month. And we've also set up a, let's see, we have a website for this, and so hopefully everyone knows how to get on there. We've also set up a website for the GBAS system to keep everyone up to date, so you'll be able to find information on GBAS, frequently asked questions, that kind of thing. Let's see, portable noise monitoring updates, completed quarterly permanent portable noise monitors, permanent portable. One or the other, I'm not sure. Let's say portable in Brisbane, Portola Valley, and Woodside, I believe, right, Bert? Yeah.
They're portable, but
they're portable. Yeah. Okay.
They've been there a long time.
And then the Excelsior District portable noise monitoring results, they're in everyone's package. Okay.
Okay. I do. Any questions from our members?
I have a comment.
Yes, Sue.
I just want to thank you, Ivar, very much for your proactive and challenging to FAA. I really appreciate that. And I was and am skeptical of GBAS. So what you said, however, makes me feel more comfortable. But I really appreciate your, it's been for, how long have you been here now? Not that long, but every meeting I think you've shown your willingness to listen to the public and to us, and you're assertive and proactive and not shy about stepping forward to help us. I really appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Pine.
I did a question for you, Ivar. You know, my office has been working with the Roundtable and with Council to try to understand this issue that's been raised about Title 21, and which again, I'm not an expert on, but apparently there's some state law about noise monitoring, and it's generated some confusion about you know, what this law means, and I think there's kind of a need to clarify that. And I understand your office or the airport is trying to put something down in writing to kind of set the parameters for that.
Next meeting, Supervisor.
Okay.
So Bert, you'll do a report, Bert, at the next meeting on that. Okay. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Any other roundtable member have a question or comment on item number 6? If not, I'm going to open up to public comment for item number 6, and I have 2 public speaker cards. One would be Charlie Wambach, and the next is Jennifer Lansman. Charlie from San Francisco and Jennifer from Palo Alto.
Charlie Wambach from the Excelsior in San Francisco. You mentioned the noise forum, and I'm going to get back to the pollution aspect of this, okay? Because I think air quality is a real big thing, okay? I mean, I know you know, we had to wear masks for a couple weeks around here when all the smoke was coming. And when you have planes consistently coming over, you know, I mean, every couple of minutes sometimes, you know, it was really great the other day when the wind was going west. It was so great. I mean, that was a wonderful day. You know, it seems like pollution would be one of the aspects of this besides noise, because if you have planes going over 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 feet all the time, they're dropping stuff on the ground. You know, I mean, airplanes are more polluting than cars. You know, I mean, if you go at night, you know, sometimes one night I was on the internet, and they were tracking. They said, well, they've tracked 113,000 flights in the last 24 hours, and I just see the activity is going on all the time. You know, and so is pollution? Do they address pollution at all?
You know, I believe one of the studies is the overall health effects. And so I believe it is going to be addressed in the studies that will be performed or have been performed.
Well, I would like to start pushing for that, because it seems like that's one of the environmental factors is the unhealthy pollution that these planes create. You know, we don't think about it, you know, but if you can hear them, you know, and they're going over your house, they're dropping something on you. I mean, there's just no doubt in my mind about that. As far as insulation, you know, I mean, so I'm not sure how effective the insulation was sometimes. I would never even ask for it. We got new windows put in the back of our house. In fact, we put a double pane windows in the back of our bedroom. So, you know, that was recommended. And GBAS, at the technical meeting, it appeared that they were only talking about a couple of 100 feet difference. You know, have they gotten better at that? You know, as far as their controls were only going to be a couple 100 feet?
Well,
I just think we have to let GBAS play out longer. It's still, we're in its infancy in its design. So,
okay.
Thank you, Charlie. All right. Seeing no more public comment on this, bring it back to the, Jennifer, yes, of course, there you are.
Hi, I want to echo the comments about President Sartero. I think it's been really helpful that you have provided input of what's being said at the FAA, and you're taking some of our concerns there. Following up on Mary Jo's question, though, about process, one of the things that concerns me, for example, is about as you know, I attended that meeting in San Francisco, and my comment was how the Part 150 study, which is available for comment now, doesn't have mention of all the next-gen noise problems. I believe the study was put together in 2015, 2016, and I was around in 2015 when there was a little bit of a denial that there was a problem. And so to think about the FAA annoyance study as the future as to how communities outside the 65 DNL are going to get attention is concerning to me, because I feel that things like the Part 150, interactions with the FAA, the Select Committee, GBAS, Pirate, everything is sort of playing out, but we can't wait until the FAA annoyance study is done, because the mandate is for them to be done by 2020. In my mind, there should be a moratorium on all of what's happening, or at least a recognition that this problem is, you know, is being looked at and nothing should be cast in stone. Otherwise, it feels like it's musical chairs. Somebody's going to get ahead and move this route, and then that's going to be permanent. And oh, too bad, so sad, you know, that happened and it's done. So I think we have to have some sort of reconciliation. I mean, Pirate, for example, we've known about Pirate, that it's been in the works. I don't know why it was a surprise to anybody. The reason we found out about it is because we've been following it. It was supposed to be published in November. On November 8th, my sister's birthday. And so I thought I'd check in October how that was coming along, and boom, it was already published. And then we asked what's going on. But the Roundtable says, well, we didn't know about it. So as I mentioned the other night, there is a communication problem going on if we can't have next-gen noise problems incorporated into a Part 150 study which deals with SFO noise issues. And so I just think there has to be some sort of reconciliation about where we are with all of this, and not leave people who are outside of the 65 DNL zone out of the written process at least. So thank you.
Jennifer. Go ahead.
If I heard you right, Jennifer, no one's waiting for anything. You know, we think Night Hush has a lot of promise, along with the 050 departure. And there's other offshore waypoint, those things that came up that I think we would prioritize and use this process that the FAA outlined to try to get movement on it. But if your question's around the Part 150 and the CNEL development, we need to continue to do our Part 150 updates, and then once the repercussions of the noise annoyance study are known and established into regulatory framework, then we would respond to that. But we still need to be doing those things around what's currently legally mandated. I don't know if I got your point correct. We can talk afterwards if you'd like. Yeah, okay.
Bring it back to the Roundtable members. Any other comments on this item? Seeing none, I'll close it and go on to item number 7. And I'm turning it over to our technical consultant, Justin Cook, for follow-up from our November 8th Technical Working Group meeting. Justin?
Sure. Thank you, Elizabeth. So I just thought I would summarize kind of what we talked about in the Technical Working Group meeting. The main focus was obviously on the FAA questions that have been submitted. We went over each of them. There were some possible suggestions, edits that were incorporated for clarity sake. We noted some future possible questions that we could ask. We discussed the IFP gateway. Beth White was obviously there and had some comments on that. We focused in on Pirate a little bit, and specifically kind of the format that we could bring IFP gateway updates to the roundtable. HMMH is actually tasked with newly tasked with kind of monitoring those updates and kind of reporting on those. So we'll be following up on that. And Bert gave a brief update on the GBAS briefly. But that was about it. That was their focus.
I think the highlight was that Beth White from the FAA was there, and she was very interactive, and she stayed and talked with the members of the public who were there, and she felt very comfortable, and everyone was very respectful. So that, given that experience with our interaction with everyone, I think that the FAA is going to feel more comfortable coming and being with us, except on this special day today. So, thank you very much, Justin. So we'll move on to item number 8, which is a presentation of the Ground-Based Noise Ad Hoc Committee's scope of work, which is in your packets, pages 24, 25, 26, I believe. So I'll turn it over. Actually, I'm going to turn it over to our Vice Chair, Ricardo Ortiz, to present it. I'm going to pick this up.
Good evening, Madam Chair. And first of all, let me just apologize for my tardiness. We had a council meeting that the scheduling was a little ambiguous. And so I finally made it. So I apologize for being late. And secondly, so I want to say, first of all, a big thank you to particularly James and Linda Wolin and Supervisor Pine's office for helping put this document together, and for a lot of hard work, and we went back and forth on the language. But let me just talk about it. We had our first committee meeting, and I felt it was very productive. I think that there was a lot of members of the public that some of them were very well versed in the items that we discussed. And so we came up with a plan of what we want this committee to do and what we wanted to accomplish. So the main push, the main issue is the backblast from the aircraft taking off. First, when they first apply power, and I've been told I can't say certain things, and then when they first go airborne. Also, there is reverse thrust when the flights arrive, and there's aircraft engine run-up, warm-up procedures on departure, aircraft taxiing on the runways, use of auxiliary power units, and then vehicular and other noise sources right on the tarmac on the airfield. So that's what we want to focus on. So we want to start first with just collecting existing data before we even start looking for anything else. We want to see what changes in infrastructure took place in the last few years when a lot of my constituents and others have felt an increase in the noise. So particularly any changes in the buildings at SFO, particularly at the end of runways 1L and 1R. Second, we want to look at environmental conditions, and I'm not going into the very detailed, just it's all in the document here. Any environmental conditions that contribute to the noise. any changes in operational procedures that may have contributed to any increase, and then any impacts by other actors outside of the airport. Second, we want to look at metrics, how we measure the noise to see, again, we want to validate the fact that noise has increased, so we want to look at the way it's measured, look at the existing data that we have to see, just to get a sense of what has happened. Look at the equipment that's used to collect this data, the noise data. And again, it's been suggested that some of the equipment is designed for overflights versus ground-based noise. We want to look at other data and studies from other airports, from other communities. Again, we don't need to reinvent the wheel if we have data from other places that we can use. We're looking to see what changes in the equipment, in the measuring equipment that we have that we need going forward. And then finally, we want to start looking at mitigating options. What can we do about it? Because it's all great if we find out that the noise is there. I think we already know it. But what can we do about it as far as the ground-based noise? So we've set up a subcommittee schedule to go through some of the data and to come up with some different timeline to follow up. So I encourage you to take a look at it. And I would welcome any comments. And I guess, are we asking for an approval of the? So. So please approve it, and so we can go forth and conquer.
So could you kind of explain to our members who all is on your committee, subcommittee right now, and do you want any other members?
Okay, so I don't have the exact list of the subcommittee, but I can see I'm looking at Terry.
Everybody raise their hand who's involved.
Terry, we had Ann Schneider, Al Royce, and there's one other person that, Ann Schneider, I already mentioned you, yeah. But there was one other person. But anyway, we did also have a lot of members of the public that were there that had great insight and very good questions, and it was very helpful having them there.
This is incredible. This is really incredible work. Thank you. This is a lot. You got a lot done in a short amount of time, so this is good.
Yeah, thank you.
Just something I thought, if we could prepare an actual trial, and my thought is around different departure procedures, like noise abatement procedures, that tend to have high thrust and high rates of climb to get altitude, but that potentially has a larger backblast impact. And so the concept would be to develop a testing pilot program around different departures at different specified procedures. United has a couple different noise abatement procedures. There's also best rate of climb, best fuel economy. Look at those kinds of things and measure that, but develop that kind of program within the work of the subcommittee. And then I think we could probably get a partner in one of our airlines. I see anyone here? Where's Glenn? To fly these departures, we would make that ask and do a test and see what happens.
That's wonderful, Supervisor.
And then Terry O'Connell, Supervisor Pine.
Well, Ricardo, thank you for your leadership on this. This is a great work plan, and thank you for acknowledging Linda Wollen's contribution to it. And, in reading it over, one thing that jumps out is there's lots of information requested by SFO, right? I mean, we're, physical conditions, environmental conditions, operational procedures, existing data. So, Ivar, are you going to be able to kind of put the resources against this, so that we can get this stuff, quickly and kind of all pull it together?
Yeah, we've already started. I've already asked for the team to just give me a complete briefing of changes in the airfield. And so I already have an overlay of what's changed, buildings, displaced thresholds, everything else. So we're committed to getting the resources.
So when you see all these to-dos by where every time it says information to be provided by SFO, you're cool with all that?
See, I'm looking at Bert. Yeah, and Bert's my metric of how
right,
cool
Bert.
we are. But yeah,
So,
it
yeah,
looks
but
like-
just maybe by the end of the day tomorrow, that would work.
Yeah, right. I think they've got until January to kind of start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Terry.
So I wanted to say that I was really happy with the format that this subcommittee took. It gave us a bullet points that we want to address, and we know that those items are not going to be addressed by our next meeting or maybe even in the next year. But they're all things that we can work on and have a game plan. So that's really good to have that information. To follow up on it, one of the big things for my area is we wanted to define what ground-based noise was, and when it no longer was ground-based noise and it was actual departure noise. And so, like the recommendation that I had made, a meeting or two ago in this group, that we have also a committee that looks at departure noise and that's looking at arrivals noises, because they're all very separate noises that have their own issues, their own group of people that are affected by all the policies that the FAA makes and what the airport does on the ground and in the air. So I think that for my community, the Ground-Based Noise Committee has, doing this, decision on what the work plan is going to be really is not many of the concerns that come out of my community, and really need to have those other specific subcommittees for departure and arrivals. And I think that would help direct this group when we come back together on what some of the issues can be and how we can approach them. So.
Sure.
Can I make a comment on that? Just
yes.
Because we actually ended up at the subcommittee going out of order, and I think it was very important that we did it to kind of clarify what it is that we were talking about. So I appreciate you bringing that up. I think it was very important that we got it clarified. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it was very important also. So.
And Terry, just to address your comments about wanting to have like the three different buckets that we can always rely on, a departure, noise issues, arrivals. Part of what the initiative did was kind of merge those in a sense, and so now I think that come the new year that we really need to kind of separate them out a little bit more and get them for you. So
I agree, because
yeah.
So many of the things
Yes.
that may help reduce ground-based noise may affect departure noise, and rate of climb and optimum amount of thrust, and all those things are things that we're going to need to be able to just figure out if it's feasible. And so I think that each of those areas need to develop their own work plan of what falls in their particular bucket.
Okay, great. Any other comments from our roundtable members about this? Sue, yes.
So going back to what you just said, I think at the last meeting we had, I thought we agreed to this, or we're going to put it on the agenda, was that at each meeting we did have some update on departures and arrivals, and there were three things. What was the
Ground-based departures and arrivals.
Was the ground-based?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know if you need to agendize to have
Well,
that at every
I think that what we, like I said, the departures and arrivals are kind of lumped into our questions having to do with the initiative. And so if we're going, I think next year we can specifically say arrivals, departures, but that will segment things quite a bit. And we're really trying to focus on some of these questions that we have submitted to the FAA to kind of get some answers on those, which are both departures and arrivals. I mean, it's kind of put together. So I hear what you're saying, though.
Especially since we're having new members
Yes.
And,
Mhm.
I mean, it's hard to get up to speed. So
Of
I
course.
think whatever information each time we meet is clear, helps. Thank you.
Hopefully, you're tutoring your replacement.
I am going to suggest that they start studying now.
You know, there's a study hall at Sue's house in Pacifica. And
Just a point, and I think that the committee did great work. I think this is a terrific start. And I just had one question, just to, I think, Dave's point as well as Ivar's. How much existing data do we have for them to use as a starting point about what the noise levels were over the last period of time versus obviously now and going forward?
You know, I think the problem is we have average noise data. We don't have what, if I don't know if I'm right on that, Bert, but the backblast is a significant noise event. Bert, do we have that kind of data for historically?
We don't have the 1 second data any longer on most of it, but we do have data, so we're pretty specific. Power uses too.
From going back pre our any reconstruction or next gen?
We're looking back 5 years.
Okay, okay, so
That's great.
it's pretty good, yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yes,
I just have a quick
Diane.
question. Terrific job. I just was wondering, is there a game plan to get this information out to the communities that are affected so that they can participate in your scheduled meetings? Any game plan there, people? Fearless leader, Ricardo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's a good question. Okay, so we have our normal ways of communicating with the public, which will show what the results of the committee are, the way we've done it here tonight. We also have, in Burlingame and Hillsborough, we have a group that has formed that has been very helpful in disseminating information. And I hope Lynn just nod and say, you will continue to help us disseminate it, yes. So, but that would be really the only two. I'm happy, you know, and again, I share it through my site whenever I have information to share, so I encourage you to do that in your community too.
Yeah, and I've seen some signs, I don't know if you're behind the signs that say airport noise. People have them in their yards. I don't know if have you seen those?
I am not behind them.
You might know about, okay. Yeah, that might be a way of, if those folks have a website, maybe they can at least disseminate the information about the meetings, because it's very important that the public be heard. I know we all sort of feel that way. This is concrete. I really appreciate it. I just hope the public has an opportunity to get into the nitty-gritty with you.
And I don't know, Lynn, if you mind just telling us the number of people you have signed up for your...
Right now, we have 150 residents.
Okay.
In Burlingame, Hillsborough, and Millbrae, mainly, a few in San Mateo.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So she said 150 residents in Burlingame, Hillsborough, and San Mateo. So, but again, that is a good start, and those are the people who are very concerned about it, and they are the people behind the signs.
Any other comments? If not, I'm going to close that and open public comments. We have 2 speaker slips. We have one from Julie Kwok of Burlingame and one from Ann Schneider of Millbrae.
Happy holidays, everyone, and thank you so much for the holiday treats. And I wanted to first thank Vice Chair Ortiz for his leadership on the ground base. Thank you so much. I think it's a very important work that you are doing, because I live in Burlingame and I constantly hear the backblast, pretty much starting about 5:30 all the way to sometimes 2:30. So it gets pretty difficult for me. But anyway, this past weekend, my husband and we've been looking at different trackers, Oakland trackers. Specifically, we prefer that tracker over SFO because they give a little bit more data. And so we noticed that this weekend, I believe starting 12th 3rd and through this morning, 12th 5th, all 3 airports, they seem to change their flight path. Unless, I don't know why, but they seem to be using 2BL, 2BR, which is the longer one, for the outbound flights. And then they were using the 1L, 1R for the inbound flight. I don't know why, and I don't know if you guys can explain to me, but it was a relief. The reason is because when the flights were using the longer one, the 2BL, 2BR, it's facing the water, so we hear it a lot less. And I think that we were testing it, so like the back blast, it was a little bit louder, but it only lasts about 30 seconds. But before it was lasting about like 60 a minute or 90 seconds or so. So we're hoping that, you know, the FFA can continue to use this flight path. I don't know. Can you answer to that question? Was there a change, or it was?
It's weather related. About 15% of the time we go into the southeast plan, and that's what you're experiencing, and it's around storm winds that cause us to reverse traffic, and so that's what you experienced. About 15% of the time we go into that condition, but it's not a test, or it's just, it happens when the wind drives us in that direction.
And I hope that in the future you guys can consider using this type, because it brings relief. I noticed that Foster City was a benefit. Viz Valley, Little Hollywood, I noticed that there weren't any flights flying over there, so something. Yeah.
It's a safety issue, and then the tower determines when it's appropriate to switch to the other runways. So it's completely built on safe operations based on wind direction and velocity.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I want to give a little tutorial on that lift. Anne.
Hi, Ann Schneider. I'm an alternate to Roundtable, but Annie is here today. But I wanted to add a couple of things that Councilman Ortiz left off of the ground-based noise. One of them was, I think you might have said this, but it's the location of the devices that are monitoring noise, that they have been set up for in-flight noise, not ground-based noise. So one of the things that we'll hopefully be looking at is location of whatever devices are going to collect noise. The other thing was, if a noise... It's hard to do a noise complaint on backblast because it lasts so very, very long. And if that complaint gets in and it isn't matched to a flight, that data is dropped. And hopefully in the future that data will not be dropped, even if it's difficult to match a particular flight to a particular noise complaint. The third one, and I know we talked about it in the subcommittee, but is annoyance. If a lot of the annoyance measures are more based on in-flight type of noise experiences, backblast is vibrations, it's, you can feel it in your ears, it's a different set of annoyance factors. So we want to make sure that any annoyance studies include the experience that you get from backblast. And I'm just going to comment on, as someone who lives in Millbrae, about 2 blocks from here, when there is bad weather, those flights that land on runway 1 come immediately over our homes, and we do it for the greater good, but it's horrible. So it's not something that we would like to see as a regular state. Thank you.
Okay, this is an action item. If there are no more questions or comments, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve this plan.
I'll make a motion to approve the plan.
Okay, Sue Degree motioned, and Janet and Harvey took a tie for seconding. All right. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? It looks like you've got yourself a party, Ricardo. Motion passes. Thank you very much. We'll go on to the next agenda item, which is the consideration and adoption of our Roundtable fiscal year 2018-2019 budget. We're a little behind the schedule, so but we've done a really good job, I think, haven't we, James?
I think so, yeah.
And we did have some help, I must say, with one of our other regular budget analyzers, Ann Wingert, reviewed this, and we made some changes. So I'll turn it over to James and let him present present the budget, and if you'd like to chime in anytime, Ann, you can make your comments also. Thanks.
Yeah, so it's on page 27, and I'm just going to kind of take a high-level look at this and then entertain any questions. Our performance last year, we did pretty good. The only area that we kind of crept up over was with our technical services. So as well as everything else, though, we were well in range. With our administrative and operations, we're on the line. Projects, programs, additional allocations in that area, we stayed under for that. We did have to utilize some of our contingency funds for the aforementioned technical services, but otherwise we're doing pretty good where we have an uncommitted year-end balance that we're rolling over. So for this year, one of the things we tend to talk about every time we bring up the budget is a number of years ago in 2011, we reduced the fees by half for member cities, CCAG and the County of San Mateo. And so we bring that up to ask the question, should those return back to normal levels? So in consultation with our small team, we did bring that up and had proposed to bring those back to our regular normal dues, which were established before fiscal year 2011. So anyways, so that's one of the bigger changes with the proposed 2018-2019 budget. Otherwise, though, everything else more or less stays the same with some small tweaks, particularly in the noise conference attendance for members. We're reducing that just because we've not utilized that in the past, but we're hoping that, in the chance that we do get some members to do that, we have funds allocated for that. And trying to see where else we did some minor tweaking.
James, could I just add a bit of information about the fees? Like I said, I've been on the Roundtable not as long as Sue, but a pretty long time. And during the recession, the Great Recession, 2008, 9, 10, some of the members were having a hard time balancing their budgets. And the annual membership fee is $1,500 a year per city. It's not based on size of the city or population like CCAG fees are. And so we sliced it into half. So it's been at $750 a year for member city fees. And I think you get a lot for $750. And it seems like all the cities, there's an old saying, a rising tide lifts all boats. And so we've had a good economy. And of course, if there is a hardship, we'd really like to know that. But it seems reasonable to reinstate the full fee of $1,500 a member city going forward for the. This would be for the 1920 budget, or for this year's budget?
For this year, yes.
For this year's budget, yes. 2018-19, right. So just to put it in perspective, that's the scope of what we're talking about when we say go back to a full membership fee. Go ahead. All right. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I think you summed up the last
Okay.
bit there. So
Good.
with that, I'll take any questions.
So I have a little caution on that. Your memory is awesome. That is true. We were struggling at the time. With all the hazards happening now, like in our area, it's erosion constantly, but there's fires possibilities even in our city. Maybe not totally, maybe, I don't know what other people feel. I think the work being done here is very important and needs to be supported really well. So I don't want to detract from that. I think we have an important job, and it's very important to be present in body and in money. So. But I do have that one reservation.
Yes. Any other?
I just have a question.
Yes.
So you're suggesting maybe a lower fee per city? And
No,
is that,
not lower. Instead of doubling it, making it,
that's what I'm
back.
saying. Instead of the 1,500, just a figure in between the 750 and the
Yeah.
1,500. Got it.
That's all. And then there's the county is rich, right? County's rich, airport's rich, how about that?
We're paying a
Airport
good
is really
share.
supporting us. I mean, if you look
The
at the
airport is the
numbers.
main funder.
The airport is supporting our efforts here. And, you know, we are all, you know, volunteers as our elected officials and our cities. Again, $750 for a membership to.
I think it should be more.
all
I
of
am
this.
not against that.
Because we ask a lot. I mean, every, you know, we say, well, we want this information, we want that information, and that doesn't come free. And so not only does the airport pay for all of our, you know, operating costs, but then all those other additional things that we ask them to do, information. So, anybody have Ricardo?
Madam Chair, I'd like to say, I feel 1,500 is a very reasonable amount, and I would support that.
Is everybody current?
There is one outstanding, and
It's in the memo.
yeah, I don't.
What letter does it start with?
Here's the thing. Everybody, this is an anomaly, so I need to just get a double check on our end.
You may have lost the check.
Maybe. It's in the mail. So here's the thing, that I just need to go and make sure that that's double checked. It's just at the time I wrote this, it was just like I had to publish. So, and I had to be completely transparent. So, but normally that usually gets itself worked out. The year past, CCAG was behind on that, and at that point when we were publishing, they were missing. We've since corrected that, so it's not a concern. It's just I want to make sure I'm completely transparent.
This would be an action item to approve the budget and as it's written, or modify it. Well, I have a speaker card, and I'll open it for public comment, and then I'll bring it back to the round table to make a decision. So we have Michael Harris would like to speak on this item.
Thank you, Elizabeth. The South San Francisco budget for the next year is $197 million. This is a joke. Raise the contribution to a reasonable number like 10,000 or 20,000.
Thank you so much. I think that it would be just nice to reinstate it. It seems like the economy has recovered from the Great Recession, although if anything is like Tuesday in the stock market, I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't think I have the stomach for another one of those. But who knows? So maybe it's a bad time. But anybody else want to chime in on this? Otherwise, Janet, go ahead.
Could you just tell me what the cost then would be to the cities? I'm not tracking.
1,500, 750 plus 750.
Got it, okay.
Yeah, because
That we
it
can-
used to be 1,500, you know, for
It was,
years
and
and
we
years and years and years and years. In 2011, we cut it in half. And, you know, we've talked about bringing it back to its, you know, reinstating it. It seems like a reasonable amount to me.
I just obviously wasn't reading this budget sheet. It to me looks like 27,000. Was that the total? Is I don't know.
Yeah, that's all the cities added
That's
together.
all, that's
Now
all
you're-
the cities.
Okay, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
It's just Rapid City's portion.
thank you.
Because they're so big,
Now,
right?
no longer council member.
All right, I'm going to, see no other comments, substantive comments, I'm going to call for a motion to approve the budget.
So moved.
Second.
Yes, a second? Carol? Okay, yeah. So Ann made the motion, Carol seconded. Any questions, comments? Yes, Ron?
The budget includes the reinstatement of.
Yes, as it's written, yes. Call for all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? And we have a new budget. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, James, for working this, and thank you, Anne, for your good financial analysis. Moving on, item number 10, we have, this is the fun part. We have a resolution, and it is an action item. We are adopting a resolution recognizing Sue Degree. Who? Sue Degree! Sue.
How many years?
Well,
16.
Wow. 16.
Did I miss one?
No, we said 15.
On the round table, it's 15.
Okay.
But it does say 16 for your public service.
Go into the middle there.
Yeah, go up there. Yeah, we need.
And then maybe we can all come out of the resolution. This is a big deal. I mean, 15 years on the round table.
Gotta be sainted.
That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Pop that cider back here.
You want to make a comment before or after? Okay, well, come over here.
So this thing, not everybody knows, was not too long ago, I wonder if it was 2013, that we said, we changed the logo because we wanted it made clear to everybody sitting here and in the public that we were dedicated to making no noise over houses because of aircraft. I don't remember what the old
I think that
logo
plane
was.
is like about 500 feet over that rooftop, don't you think?
Laughing, yeah, it is. Laughing.
Okay, this is a resolution to express our sincere thanks from the members of the San Francisco International Airport Community Roundtable to Sue Degree upon her departure from the San Francisco International Airport Community Roundtable. And whereas the San Francisco International Community was established in 1981. Okay, but I like this. Whereas Sue Degree has been a member of the City of Pacifica Council since 2002 and is retiring from public office after 16 years of service. God bless you.
I didn't die in office, thank God.
No. And whereas Sue Degree has been an active member of the Roundtable for 15 years. And whereas Sue Degree has always been one of the first to volunteer to work on a subcommittee or attend an extra meeting. Sue has served on the Budget Committee, Legislative Committee, Technical Working Group committees, and throughout them all, her dedication to solving the overhead aircraft noise issues for the health and well-being of her constituents has never faltered. And whereas Sue Degree is recognized by her colleagues and constituents as a leader in the fields of aircraft noise mitigation and airport and community land use compatibility, she is also recognized for her assistance with developing the Roundtable's branding efforts, as she so demonstrated, to further promote its vision and purpose. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of the Roundtable do hereby express their sincere appreciation to Sue Degree for her support to the Roundtable since 2003 and her tireless efforts in working with community representatives, airport officials, government officials, and airlines on the successful aircraft noise mitigation policies in the San Francisco airport environs. The Roundtable wishes her great success in her future endeavors, and it has been unanimously passed and adopted and approved by the members of the San Francisco International Airport Community Roundtable on December 5th, 2016. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you. I did want to say thanks. I did want to say thank you to the Roundtable members. I do get concerned when we have people new coming in because it's gotten harder and harder as the times have gone by. And I feel like we need to go and get candidates for city council to come and run specifically for the airport that are maybe pilots or something like that. So I don't feel like I'm an expert at all, ever. And I think the public, and my public in Pacifica is very active. So I got a little core group, which I met with, and then we were email friends and connected with Brisbane and a few other places. So without the public voice, I never could have handled the last few years. So I really appreciate you, and thank you to my fellow folks. It's not easy, and I appreciate all the time that we're here and the hard work we do.
Great. Thank
you. You've done a wonderful job.
No, that's the photographer. There you go. Lights.
You're kidding.
No, get me a phone.
They want him in the lights?
No, you can step up here. You can step up here.
Yeah. Charlie's the professional photographer. He is. Yeah, he is.
Okay, here we go. Hurry. Well, this is not going to work without a flash.
Oh, Charlie, I don't know if we're doing this. You want to leave today?
iPhone out.
All right. Okay. Thank you all. And we have a cake for you. Oh, yay.
Stick around.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
So it should be a
Good
toast.
thing the
Congratulations.
Thank
Thank you for your work.
I think we're about done, aren't we? Okay. Other matters is our aviation noise news and updates from Justin for information. And I think that you have something in the packet, don't you, Justin?
I think so. Do we have slides on the screen? Or?
And you have slides on the screen?
Oh, I do? I may not. I don't. Okay.
Page
We'll just wing it.
35, yes, Oh, 53?
So I'll briefly go through it. There's 4 different slides here. We'll talk about federal AIP grants. In the packet, you'll have a little breakdown. It's broken down into sound insulation, noise monitoring systems, noise compatibility studies, such as the Part 150. And this accounts for about $33.5 million more than fiscal year 2017. To measure the true impact of noise and protection of public health and the environment. There's also a new study that was presented this month from the American Heart Association that basically found that people exposed to the highest levels of chronic noise exposure, which would include highway and airport noise, have increased risk of heart attacks and strokes. The study suggested more research should be done to determine whether reduction in noise could meaningfully lower risk. And then I just want to give you an update on Baltimore Airport, who has an administrative petition. If you remember, in June of this year, they filed a petition with the FAA requesting supplemental EA as well as revisions to the area navigation routes and procedures. They filed a petition with the DC Court of Appeals due to FAA's inaction on that administrative petition. The Assistant FAA Chief Counsel for Airports declined to respond to the administrative petition, but noted the agency did agree to re-engage at the Community Roundtable for BWI, but will limit its involvement to issues outside of the petition. So just...
Did they just stonewall them then?
Yeah, pretty much. They have not responded at all.
We responded.
So that's it. Just some brief updates in the world of noise.
Justin.
You're welcome.
Okay. On to item number 12. Any member communications or announcements? It's season to be jolly. Anybody? Fun things to do?
Right.
Thank you, Harvey.
Happy holidays.
Thank you. Other than that, can I entertain a motion to adjourn? And we'll go cut the cake.
Yeah.
I've got a really sharp knife back there, and if somebody can cut really skinny
Not getting on an
pieces,
airplane,
we can have cake.
Sharp knife back there.
You're welcome.
So you're reordering tomorrow? I will stay. Wow. It comes earlier. Doesn't it seem like it's early?
You didn't get too much. You didn't get too much.
Yeah, I agree.
We don't have any security here.
Good to see you.
Congratulations.
Come see your delegate here.
Especially like since I
Yeah, oh my God.
like 2 days.
New faces.
And then probably in our area, I think the response. Political, making a statement.